set up here. Alright, welcome to the stream. So today we're going to be streaming, taking a piece of JSON that delivers a navigation, iterating through that and producing a workable navigation Next.js, and making that so it's server-side rendered, so it can be used for SEO purposes, which is really important. So the navigation we have here, which is set up by this default template, we're going to replace that with one that's dynamic. So there's two levels of this. We have one that we created that's going to be custom, that's controlled by the marketer. We have one that's going to be used for debugging purposes, which is going to take the whole entire list of URLs we have access to inside of the Zesty CMS and pipe it in. That way the developers can debug. There's going to be one pretty much for the marketing team and one for the developers. So let's jump right in. So the first course of action is we want to make sure that, well, we're working in Next.js. For those of you who haven't tuned in before, we have a repository that's running that is Next.js. I've posted the link in chat. And we're just going to npm run dev. And we have in the top right hand corner is the Next.js application running. And over here is our code editor. We're using VS Code. And this is our home page. So if I was to type something here like h1 hello chat, you should see that load over here. Or not. Let's try putting it down below. There it is. Alright, so I think we should be getting this up. It should be just live connecting, but let's see if it is. There it goes. Alright, now it's hooked up. It took one refresh to get going. Alright. So the first thing we want to do in working is identify the data object we're working with. And in Zesty, it's pretty simple to get to it. I'm going to our current live site, and you can just do //headless. That's going to give us a map to the different types of information we have access to headlessly. And the one we're going to focus on is this headless routing. And what this is an array of objects of every single page available in Zesty, which is quite a lot. But that's okay. So we're going to hit this particular endpoint. And we're going to do this as a server-side prop, so we have access to this before the page renders. And that way when the page renders, it's embedded in the page and the search engines have access to it. So where that is located is going to be in pages. We have a slug, and we have a server-side function here in this slug. And I'm going to just pseudocode out what I'm going to do right here is going to say access the headless, let's call it like URL map. I'm going to put in my URL here. And that's where we want the information. So we're returning props as data, and we're already getting data from this zesty function that's made as part of the NextJS starter, which resolves the page's data. That's what you're seeing here that's outputting in the console. We're now going to hit this routing, and it's this, so I'm just going to say const routes equals await, and we're just going to use the fetch that we already have access to. And we're just going to hit, without doing anything special and fancy yet, we're just going to hit this, and we're going to say let route data equal, and then we'll just say routes.json. And we'll just look the console log this just to get started. Alright, let's save. And I'm probably going to need to refresh this to see the output. Let's see. Alright. And here it is. This is the issue we have here, is we didn't write an await because that is a promise response. And then, because you can see the promise response returning here. Let's just click around and see if we can get access to that. Okay, here it is. So now we're getting our data. So this code is, we're using the fetch API. And just write fetch and we can give it the URL. And that is a async API, so you can do a try catch here as well, and you can catch for any errors. Now you see how the let doesn't work in this context, so we have to, let's go route data equals, set this up as an object that's empty, and then reset this object because now it's outside the scope of the try catch, and then we can output it here. And you can see the data there. So now we have our route data, and the route data, it's simply returning the URI, the path part. We're going to have to take this and build something from it, which means that we're going to have to iterate it and build our own tree hierarchy because it's just flat data. But we have access to it and we got to pass along the props. So up here we're capturing data. We're going to append something to data when we get in this area here and just say data dot, we're going to call it routing equals route data. So if this successfully runs, it's going to append route data to the properties. So we're going to get rid of our console log here. So now that means we should have access to our home page, which we're looking at the home page right. And I'm going to now at this point, I'm going to specifically console log content.routing. That's what I named it here. And I'm going to refresh, see if we access that. It's really upset because it's producing a lot of data, so it's telling me that it doesn't like the data because it's really big. It's throwing me a little error. I've never seen that one. That's pretty good. It doesn't like the fact that we're passing so much information here. Let's see if it outputs. So that's saying undefined now. So we're saying content.routing, we should be passing that all as content, and let's see if it is passing correctly. Need to note too that the home page needs to run this information as well, and it could be because we're running on the home page, so we're going to go to the about page. Yeah, and this is where it's showing me it's upset. It's instead of outputting the data, it's saying that it's not healthy to have this much data. Let's look at just outputting a console log of just the first part of that data. Yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't like the fact that we're almost a quarter of a megabyte of the data that returns. I'm wondering if that becomes a limitation in NextJS. So it's saying to keep it under 128, and we're at 216. And I'm going to look at the response size of this data. This is not a issue I foreseen running into. This is 58 kilobytes, which isn't terrible here. I wonder if it just pushes the max or what's really happening. I guess we can iterate through the data and reduce what we're collecting to get rid of the description. We'll want to keep the title for sure, but we can reduce the description, and we can reduce the URL since we're going to be producing. So what we're going to do is we're going to map through the data. I'm going to for each. I'm going to set reduce data equals an array, temp route, and then reducing the route. I'm gonna Google through so my process say how to unset. I'm not super familiar with JavaScript unset, JavaScript property. I think that you just type the word delete, but I'll just confirm. Delete, yep. So we're gonna go delete temp route. And looking at our data set, we're gonna delete description. And we'll get rid of the URL because we're gonna be using the path parts. Then there's the hybrid JSON URL. We don't need the zooid either, so we can get rid of that. Then I'm going to push that onto this. And at the end of this, I'm going to set data routing to now my reduce data. Let's see if it made a difference. May have to async this. is async, I think is written before. Alright, so now on home page, it's not liking that. Let's see if we can console log this out. So our reduced data is showing up here. So it says there's 344 items. Curious about the length, so I'm just gonna say .length. See how many we're dealing with specifically. And the number is 444, so we have 444 pages on our website. So we're setting data to reduced data here. I think there's a way to do a reducer. I'm not super sure, but I believe there's another way to do this in JavaScript that is better. But since we are getting it, we are setting data.routing and passing data as reduced data. But when we go over to home page and we console log out .routing, throw another console log to confirm we are here. Really strange. Oh, because we're editing in homepage. That's why, when we're looking at the about page. Alright, let's output here. Refresh. Alright, so now we're getting our data. Perfect. Since homepage runs off index.js, it has its own underneath pages index.js, just the way we have to pipe it through. Let's get that open. We'll have to copy over the same code here. So this code should be turned into a function similar to how fetch pages, but for the time of testing, we're just going to grab the one we created. And that is in slug. So we'll paste this into the home page as well. That way we know that we're dealing with routing for both pages. Now when we go to the home page, yeah, you see the output. Okay, so now we have access to data.routing, and we're going to, from a server-side rendering perspective, and we're going to take a look at the construct of our page. We have main zesty view, and notice how we're passing props in the zesty view. Well, my navigation's built off main, so I'm going to now want to pass. I can just pass this. I could, make my own property, say navigation, and I'm going to pass props.routing. Save that, and then I'm going to click in the main. And main is the construct of the page, and it creates top nav. So I need to make sure that main is getting children. That should be good enough. I don't think so. I also need to have props in here, I believe. Props. And we can test that by saying console log, and we're going for props dot navigation, and I'm going to save that. It does not like that. Let's pull slug back open. So passing navigation props.routing. I'm going to call this routing too, just to keep the naming convention the same. Just try passing props here. And I want to make sure I'm no longer console logging this out. So slug, and then when we get to the home page, no longer console logging here. So we're getting undefined now when we pass. When we're passing props. We're either incorrectly passing props, which I would not doubt. I'm not sure about how we accept props here. I think we need to be explicit. So let's just try routing. And let's try outputting routing here. There it is, okay. So we're just being explicit in the name that we're passing. So we're passing routing, and now we're console logging routing, I believe. Unless we're console logging it somewhere else. Yeah, so that's not working either. Let's take a look at this function main. This could be why. I wonder if it is. I don't think children's going to be all the elements. This is going to be array. I'm assuming that's going to work. Getting caught here. Not sure where I'm gonna go back and make sure I'm not console logging that out in different areas, just to cover my tracks. So that console log is gone. This console log's the error. Open up the about page. Get that console log. I'm gonna cut my application. I'm gonna clear. PM run dev. I'm gonna refresh, see if we get a response. Yes, we are. We're still getting that correctly. Let's check index. Maybe we're outputting on index. Weird. So routing's getting it here, but when it resolves other places, I don't see it. So it just could be misleading with the timing issue. So we are getting it that way. Let's find out. And I'm going to change that by outputting simply just when I load main. Slug is index loading that way. Alright, let's pump up main now. So we are getting this here, and what we end up want to do is we want to pass main to iterate through and build something. So just to make this easier for the output, since main is outputting like 300 items, we're just gonna just output the first one, just so I can see what is going on. And I'm gonna clear my console out just to make it a little bit cleaner. Rerun, next, refresh, and we should just see an output of the first item once this loads. Yeah, and we do, which is the home page. See, and we're seeing that it looks like when this is loading other places, it doesn't always get that property, which is interesting from where it's loading. That means we should just, I'm going to add error checking for the time being to check to see if that route exists. And how I'm going to write that is I'm going to just say, const this. Const has routing, and that's gonna go just check to see if routing was passed. I guess routing is, what's it complaining about? Not equal to undefined. And then if it's not, we will pass routing. We'll say true. Otherwise, we will say false. So then we should just be able to say it has routing. And we'll see. I'm just learning next. So I'm not exactly sure why this is being hit twice. It could be another page that's loading something headless, for example. Like could be multiple pages running. Alright, now we're gonna just check this. I'm gonna clear this out again, just run the same process. Once it's done compiling, I'm gonna refresh and see what the output is. Alright, now we're just getting what we want. Perfect. I don't know where the retrigger is happening. It could create an issue. We'll see once it starts resolving the actual pages. Okay, so now we're in this main, and main has a navigation that you're looking at here. So main loads this navigation. We're just going to look through our code to see where it is. Pretty sure it's this app bar. And we'll look at the components. There's footer, sidebar, top bar. It's going to be top bar, and top bar is being passed pages. We're going to pass this routing as well. We're going to say routing, and then we're naming this just routing. I want to say you can do a truthy here, so it says has routing this, otherwise we're going to pass it an empty array. Save. And let's open up top bar and see if we can start iterating through this data. So this is open sidebar pages, and how we're passing this in. They have pages, open sidebar, routing. So we need to account for routing up here, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure the order matters. 1, 2, 3. I added as the third one. So I'll call this routing. I don't think that matters. It could be the key. We'll see. And you can see we have some of the routes here, and then let's find where it's loading different pages down below. Nav items, and this is loading items here. So what I'm thinking I want is, let's see how this one is made. This had a box. Is this not hooked up? That is. So that has an href in it. These are nav items. I don't know how this nav item was coded. Let's see. It takes items and items. I wonder what items look like. That's what we want to find out. Because then we can make our object look like items, and then theoretically we could just pump our whole object into one of these and it should load decent. Let's see if we can find that. Landing pages. Comes in from, where's that piping in from? Nav item? Nope. Let's see, is it over here? May have access to this like global, which I'm not super positive about, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just do like a search for it, see if I can find it. Landing page? Nope. We gotta find that. Where's that data coming from? So I'll look for the word desktop app. See if I can find it hiding somewhere. Navigation.js underneath layouts. Here it is. Alright, so here's what it does. It just takes title and href. And href is just the path. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this exactly, and I'm going to turn the routing that I manipulated from here when I go through this. I'm going to recreate this route differently, and I'm just going to grab, it looks like all I need is URI and title. So URI and title. So I'm going to ditch the way I was doing this. Instead of deleting things, I'm just going to create a temp route, and I'm going to create URI, what was it? Title and href. So href, and then it's going to be route.uri, and then title is going to be route.title, which I think matches. Yeah, route and title. Alright, and I'm also going to write logic, because pretty much all the blog pages I don't want to deal with. So I'm only going to say if what the match is, but I think it goes regex.match. I think. The regex match, regex match JavaScript. string.match, so it goes the other way around. So it would just be, so I'm going to say route.uri.match, and I guess I pass the regular expression here, and then the thing I don't want is mindshare. So if it's part of our blog, which is called mindshare, I'm not going to include it in this. So that should cut out like at least a couple hundred of the outputs. Alright, so now what I'm doing is I'm changing the data that I'm sending to match the way the data it's meant to be accepted on a component. That may change later, but just to be quick, that's how I'm going to do it. And I'm getting rid of all the blog articles. Anything that has the word mindshare in the path, which would be a blog article, I'm not going to include it by saying if this match, I need to say the not here, if not this match, then add it. And then in my top bar, instead of passing landing pages, I am just going to pass routing. It's passing routing. And I'm actually going to make an additional link for this, and I'll keep landing pages here. And I'm going to call this page tests, page routes, testing routes, ID testing routes. Alright, let's see if that worked. Oh yeah, it definitely worked. Alright, cool. So now we have all our routes here to test. So theoretically, if I click here, it should bring me to the contact page. It should. Or not. Maybe I'm not passing over the href the correct way. I'm getting the title, because I have all my routes. Alright, let's see if we can punch in routings here, landing pages. Did I copy this incorrectly? Is it that flexible? No, it can't be right. Oh, this just needs to be tabbed up. Alright, testing. Save that. Testing. Oh, that's what it is that I need to update this both in the index. That's what's going on. So since I left this way and I didn't update this the way I was doing it in Slug, that's what was happening. I'm just going to copy this data. Now we should get it without, yeah, a little bit less. So it's just going to be, yeah, be less items here. Is that going to work? Come on, let's see. Okay, now we're working. Awesome. Yeah, and there's a decent amount here. About contact, so that was the landing page. So now we can see all the pages we have access to. which is perfect. That's the home page. So I'm going to ignore the home page too. Yeah, and it notices that we have the home page here. That's why it's smart. So it's seeing if it has the route, and that's where the bold is coming from. So for this, we're going to change test routes. I'm gonna punch a margin in over here to make this breathe a little bit more. Now we have test routes. So that's it for now. I got a little caught up there with the page size and a few other things, but I'm going to commit and push this up so the team can get access to this. I have a few other changes, so added the logo too. So added logo, favicon, and page routes. So what I would want to do with this going forward is that I want to make sure that this code is abstracted. That way I can turn it to a one-liner and edit it in one place, because that was creating confusion. Is that the way Next is, it has this index.js, and from what I understand is that slug will not overtake index, so you have to have this, it has to have it run in slug, which catches everything, but index as well, and those are the two files this information needs to live. So ideally writing this into a single method or function, just like this fetch pages, calling it, call it fetch navigation, and making it abstracted, that way it's in one spot and it's easy to edit and we don't get confused. But that is the way we do that. So a little bit of a hang up. Didn't get as far as I wanted. I do want to work with the navigation that we control from Zesty, but I'll have to do that in the next stream or my next coding session. So there you have it. Thanks for tuning in.